Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining the first episode of This Ain't Show. We had to switch it up because the other show is taken, and that's the type of dork I am. And I might have to change the episode again to get it right, but the important part, we're all here. As you can see, we have different panel members to hear, and this is where all the cool kids are at. So we're going to have a little different format today, but we'll have a good time. And just without any further ado, well, how about we go from top right all the way down to the left of the right? Go ahead, Mark.
My name is Mark Turner. I talk funny because I'm from Scotland. I'm in the Chicago area, and I don't know if you haven't noticed or have noticed, but I am white, right? I watched the show.
Whoa.
See?
All right, we gotta talk.
No, I'm just teasing you. So that's it. That's me. Anything else you want to know about me specifically? I mean, am I that interesting or
anything? Well, first off, everybody thinks that Scots have cool accents here in America, so Braveheart definitely helps. And so, is there anything else that you want us to know about you?
I do like long walks on the beach.
All right.
I like whiskey. So
yep.
I don't know.
Typical about that.
I'm just your average Scottish American guy, I suppose.
I guess I'll include something. So Mark's one of my good buddies. This guy taught me jiu-jitsu years ago. Have definitely learned a lot from him and with him. And so just a really good guy. We've had some extremely deep conversations, challenging each other. And so, I appreciate coming on the show, Mark. Marcus.
Happy to be here.
Me, Marcus Hemingway, and I'm from the South originally, South Carolina. And I do believe I'm the best looking man on the internet. And
there you go. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I took that title.
Hey, that's all right. Hey, someone's got to do it, right? Someone's got to do it. Ms. Joy.
Hi there. So I'm Joy McQueen. I am from the greater New York, lower Connecticut area. Not really much. I'm not going to say that I'm the best looking female on the internet by any stretch of the imagination.
We're the best looking female here.
Yeah, I'll take that. Best looking female in the group.
Well, very, very cool. So, hey, guys, we'll just jump right into it. And I'll just go ahead and shoot some questions out. And anybody can dive right in. Just go ahead and say what's on your mind. BLM. Is this an organization or just a movement?
Oh my God, it's the worst thing since sliced bread. Sliced bread is so it's a terrible organization.
Yeah.
I go every day I look out my window, I see 2 Black Lives Matter signs on my neighbor's back porch, and it just hurts my heart every day I see it. But it has not manifested anything good in the Black community whatsoever. Again, I live in DC, so when you go into Ward 7 and 8, which is where MLK and Malcolm X sit, and Alabama Avenue, and it's predominantly low-income families, you don't see Black Lives Matter over there. That's where all the crime. Yeah, that's where all the crime is at. They don't go over there. They don't march. They don't do anything. But they'll come downtown DC and tear up some statues and break some windows into some of these nice high-end shops. But
what do you dislike the most about it?
I dislike the most about it because they don't give back to the community. They get billions of dollars. They get billions with a B, and they don't give anything back to the Black community or to the community to which they say they're serving. There's no grant programs, there's no housing programs, there's no tuition programs. There's nothing. They just take all that money and run with it.
That's a good question.
Biden.
What was that?
That's because they give it to the Democratic candidates, right?
Well, of course.
The Act Blue.
Yep.
Yeah. No. BLM is a hate organization. It's a hate group. I personally feel like it's crazy because you have the organization and then you have the slogan. And so you have a lot of people who say, well, I'm not really for, everything the organization does, but I believe in, the mantra, the slogan, if you will. And know, I personally feel like that slogan is something that is used to shame other races, and to create this level of Black supremacy. And it's disgraceful. At the end of the day, if someone were to say, come out and say white lives matter, it's just so divisive. And as an organization, no, they have done nothing for the Black community except for put us even deeper down a never-ending spiral of poverty and just violence in our neighborhoods. They just perpetuate everything that could be wrong for the Black community. BLM perpetuates.
And so, here's a question to you, Mark. What do you do when you pass up some dude who's from Scotland and he's got a Scots Lives Matter? Do you talk to him? Do you have a conversation?
I'll tell you this, man. It is BLM. I mean, your original question was, are they an organization? Because the politicians and the media are starting to say, they're not an organization and that they're an ideology. Well, I mean, I've been on their website. They claim they're an organization. They are. They have a website. They have legal status in this country. They have, as well as 501c3 status, they have multiple other federal statuses for tax purposes. And I've pulled it up here. They've given 187 million to Bernie 2020, 120 million to Biden for president, 93 million to Elizabeth Warren Presidential Exploratory Committee, 78 million to Pete for America, 43 million.
But how can they do this if it's not an organization, though?
That's what I'm saying. So if they're not an organization, how are they able to receive money to an entity and then have a list of vendors and people that they contribute out to? And all of them, I'm looking at the list of their top 10, like I said, Amy for America, which was Amy Klobuchar's, Friends of Andrew Yang, Democratic Senatorial Campaign, Amy McGrath for Senate. So, I mean, their top 10 recipients are all Democratic candidates, either for president or for
That's just coincidence.
Or for the Senate.
Coincidence.
But I mean, hey, if that's what you get in this country for being an ideology, then I'm going to figure out tomorrow how I can become an ideology.
I mean, why not? Why can't you?
Seems to be working.
It's a great model. Seriously. So let's to the next question. And I already know what you guys are going to say. But the whole Trump is a racist. How is he racist? I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. And the only thing that I ever hear is, well, about the whole thing with Charlotte, there's good people on both sides, and he didn't denounce white supremacy and it's just like, at what point, what really can one say to just nip that in the bud? Because it's the dumbest conversation ever, considering all the things that have been done. So what do you say?
I say, I'm not going to say Trump is or is not a racist, because I believe in his policies. I believe he's a good man. Being a racist is a belief. You believe to be something like, I'm better than you, or my group of people are better than your group of people. That's everybody's racist. I'm racist. I jokingly say I hated broke women. I'm racist against broke women. I didn't want to marry one or date one. But it's all about your discriminatory acts. How you discriminate against me? You're not taking no laws away from me. No, you're not eliminating me from the financial market. He's actually adding you to these markets and wants you to achieve greatness in these markets. Racism is the last thing I have seen from this man. But people use it as a crutch. And let me give you an example. Instead of them trying to do or benefit from the laws that he has put out or signed, they say, oh, he's a racist. So it gives them a blanket slate to say, you know what, I don't have to do it because he's a racist. No, you're not trying to achieve. And then when we pass you by and we say we use the laws that Trump signed, well, you could use those racist laws, you're a turncoat or you're Uncle Tom Malone. So I'm only saying that Trump is not a racist. I haven't seen anything racist about the man. I don't know his heart of heart, but what he has shown me is not. He must be the worst racist I ever seen in my life because I came from South Carolina and I seen real racism.
Right.
And he's doing a poor job right now.
Right. So I guess this is a question for everybody. Is racism even real? Is that a real thing?
I'm deeply offended, Marcus, that you're racist towards this broke person right here.
Oops.
Yeah.
Make it up with good looks. Make it up with good looks. Don't worry about it.
I mean, the whole Trump is a racist card is just so pitiful, and it's child's play. It's kind of like, you know, when the left doesn't have a valid argument, they basically go to name calling. There is zero evidence that President Trump is a racist. This whole concept that he hasn't denounced white supremacy. Have you noticed that originally he was a racist and misogynist and a xenophobic and blah, 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 right? So now we all know that he's not a racist because, you know, you have the Platinum Plan, and obviously we've had the lowest Black unemployment. There's been permanent funding for HBCUs and HB whatever's, and they, you know, they had the First Step Act, which thousands of Black people have benefited. So obviously we've nipped in the bud that he's not a racist. So instead of them now going with the racist narrative, have you noticed that it's now he's not denouncing white supremacy? Have you noticed that it's gone from Trump is a racist that he won't denounce white supremacy, and it's just ultimately it's child's play. It's stupid. It's insulting to the voters' intelligence, and you know, most people with a brain can see right through the for lack of better words, BS.
I mean, Joy, I'll add to what you're saying there is that, I mean, you listed off a whole host, and there's a lot more that you left out of stuff he's done since he's been president to show that he's not racist. But nobody was calling him a racist for 20 odd years when he's given money to Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and
I was
coalition, and nobody was calling him a racist when he had the most of all of his companies. He hired the most minorities in all of New York City for whatever they did the little survey. You know, I mean, he's had African Americans on his executive board. And this is all before
he's been in over 100 rap videos, 100 rap songs. Excuse me, 100.
Exactly right. And so
what is going on?
He only seemed to become a racist, you know, when he jumped to quote unquote the other side. Right. That's when everyone turned on him. And then now it's this whole white supremacy thing. And what he says is he goes, okay, do you denounce white supremacy? Yes. Well, do you do it right now? Will you do it right now? And he goes, yes, I just did. And they go, I know, but will you do it right now? Will you do it right now? Because that was 3 seconds ago. Now, now, are you doing it now? Have you done it? But you haven't done it now, Trump. Okay, of course I do. I know, but will you do it now? And it goes on like this.
Unfortunately, some of us have those type of relationships to where you have the other significant other who always has to be reassured. Do you love me? You love me? You love me? I just said it 5 minutes ago. Will you stop already? Yes. Like, well, you didn't say it today. You didn't say it. It's just like, that's how crazy it is. And it's like, hey, that's a you thing. I got you the flowers. I got you the chocolate. I'm doing this, that, and the other. Like, you got to figure that out on your own. And so, it's just dumb. And so, how do you tell when people say things like, well, he's to blame for all of the hate crimes right now? Like, I don't even.
Was Obama to blame for Trayvon Martin? Okay.
Yeah, right.
What about all the other individuals that died, due to supposed police brutality during Obama's era? Okay. So it's just nonsense. And ultimately, I've come to realize that there's a significant level of brainwashing, and it sounds so conspiracy theorist in a sense, but it's true. Like there are people out there that literally they don't have an ounce of reason or logic left in their brain. And so there's just a certain level where I've just, I'm done. It's like, people, and really it's driven by hatred. When you hate someone, you will find any reason under the sun to denounce them or claim that they're a bad person or whatever. So
Yep.
you know, the hatred and the brainwashing, and it's just there's no talking to some people.
You know,
Stuck on excuses to focus on negative rather than finding reasons to appreciate the positive. Go ahead, Marcus.
it's so funny because in my neighborhood, you have so many people with doctoral degrees, master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, and
Right.
I asked them, I said, "Are y'all trying to do any type of research?" I mean, because when you're in college, you learn how to research, you learn how to look at both sides of the argument.
Sure.
And be fair. That's why I say, because these are teachers. These are people who are teaching our kids. And if you're not trying to be fair to yourself, how can you be fair to our kids as you teach them? And that was my
Right.
big hiccup, because when my daughter goes to school and I got to desensitize her every time she comes home and give her a debriefing and say, okay,
How do you do that, by the way?
I just tell her, first thing I tell her, I said, it's men and women. That's who's supposed to be with each other. You don't kiss on the girls, and little boys don't kiss on little boys, but that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. President is a good person. He's a nice person. Yes, Obama was our first black president, so respect him and such. And if you got any questions, come holler at your daddy. My other two kids, I got a 25-year-old and I got a 21-year-old. They will always come to me when it's some political matter they want to talk about. So they just don't go out there on the whim. So I'm trying to encourage my daughter. If you have any questions about politics, come talk to Dad, and let's talk about it. Don't not listen to your teacher, but there's always an other side to a conversation. There's always another side to the coin. Let me show you the other side. And
yeah,
and I'm trying to make it inviting.
So hey, man, that's so powerful. I know we talked about this in the past, but that's you being a dad, that's you playing your position. Mark's got kids as well, and so just doing that thing that it's obviously nothing that you brag about, because that's just what you do. How crazy is it? So last week we were talking about not to incentivize or to, I guess, de-incentivize, the welfare system, and also to leverage it. And so that was kind of my point, Marcus, like, because you're doing that thing that you're doing, like, it's huge, as opposed to not doing it. But again, I do get the back end of that as far as not being able to legislate love and everything. Mark, what is your biggest fear, I would say, or concern as a father, in terms of your kid possibly being brainwashed in academia?
Well, so I have two children. One is 16 and one is 3. And I was pretty happy, and I will brag about this actually, is that my son, when he's a sophomore now, when he was in 8th grade, he went on the trip to DC, right, as all the kids do. And he sends a picture to me from the Lincoln Memorial with him with a Make America Great Again hat on. And he had bought the hat by himself while he was there. And that just that made me kind of proud, right? That he gets it. Because here's the thing, and what Marcus said was fantastic, is that he's talking to his kids about this. Now, whatever your values are, you should be talking to your children. But so many parents right now are experiencing their kids going off to college and coming back after that first semester for Thanksgiving, and their child has blue hair and is talking about this and is all wanting socialism and is running around the house with a Che Guevara shirt on, and the parents are a complete loss, right? And it's because you're letting someone else educate your children. It's not the state's responsibility, for one, mandate for 2, or privilege for 3 to educate our children, right? Education in this country and across the world has always been done in small communities, and more we are allowing what's taught to our children to come from the federal government, and that's dangerous no matter who's in power, right? Whether it's red, blue, green, purple, whatever. You don't want the government mandating the education to our children. So, the fact that
Right.
you're debriefing them and having those conversations with them, they'll be able to call out some of that stuff as they see it. And there are a lot of those videos that go viral where you see that young high school, it's usually a young high school conservative male who's standing
Right.
up to a teacher and
Yep.
being ridiculed by a grown
Exactly.
man or woman in the
That's
classroom.
crazy. It's
Can't
crazy.
You can't even have a conversation. And the thing that gets me is the teacher's not even trying to have a conversation with that child at that time, or maybe even trying to persuade them at that time.
Right.
It turns to
Nothing.
anger and it turns to hatred against a 16, 17-year-old child because he's disagreeing with the teacher in the classroom. And that's dangerous.
So last week we kind of touched John, who's not here right now. His idea was to remove sexual education from school. So my question to everybody is, would it make sense to have like some type of a study hall for certain, I guess, social awareness classes that were being taught or pushed to be introduced? So let's say they're going to be teaching about sexual education. As a parent, should I be able to have the right to say, you know what, during this time, I want my kid to go to a study hall?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. The last I knew was that here in Connecticut, your parents, especially for the younger kids, the parents have to, give permission and consent in order for their kids to participate in, the sex ed. But I will say that a lot of our problems today stem from the education system. And, it's interesting because the concept of sex ed, what is the purpose of it? Is the purpose to discourage our young children? Like, there's no reason why a child in middle school, really personally, in my opinion, there's no reason why a child, period, middle school, high school, whatever, should be having sex. But what we have is you have this system set up in place where you have this sex ed, and instead of sex ed being there to simply just educate the kids and discourage them, it's almost there to promote and say, hey, like, if you do this, this is how you want to do it, and this is how you want to be safe. And it's
Right.
really sad. When I was in school, in graduate school, they allowed us to volunteer. Now, I personally was against it, so I didn't do it, but I had friends that did it. And they would volunteer. They'd go into the schools, and they would be teaching these kids, like in elementary school. And you would have like these guys, the mid-20s, going in and teaching little girls about, like, their menstrual cycle. And I'm just like, that is so inappropriate and so disgusting. That
they're teaching it out here in California, where they're teaching 5-year-olds anal sex and something called blood play. It's I wish I was making it up. And you guys heard about the drag queen time in Texas?
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, it just goes to show our nation is moving further and further and further away from God. It's like a marathon, a race, a sprint, trying to run in the opposite direction from godly values and godly principles. But absolutely, sex education does not need to be in the schools, because they're not really there to educate the kids about such matters. Like, that really needs to come from the home. And so that goes back to, what a lot of leaders in the Black conservative community are saying, that we need to fix our homes. You won't have to have sex education in the school if you didn't have broken families. If you had the father in the house, and if you had, the parents being married, raising the kids together, because then the kids would have that stability. They would have that message coming from home. Okay, and they wouldn't have to come from the school. So the sex education in school is just a Band-Aid over a gaping wound.
No, it absolutely. I mean, go ahead, Marcus.
I got 2 quick points. To have a study hall, if you want to opt out of sex ed, it might be virtually impossible in some states. I can say in DC right now, they have Black Lives Matter Week. Not trying to go back to Black Lives Matter. And when I found out they had a Black Lives Matter Week, I tried to get my daughter opt out of it. And they had to make special concessions just for my child, because I said, we don't believe that in my house. and they
So your
call
life doesn't matter, basically. So this the irony of it is crazy. Everybody else is that's you. That's you.
I'm gonna send you the agenda because I still have it. It's amazing what they had on this agenda for 1 week. But anyway, when another parent heard me say this, it was in the office. They said, "I want my child out of it too as well." And what I'm trying to say is, if enough parents come together, it only has to be that one parent to speak up and have the courage to do it. Oh, it can go away real quick. You know, I was so lucky for my kids and my nieces because my niece was she's 36 right now and she does not have a child. And she says, you traumatized me. I was like, what do you mean? When she was thinking about having sex, I grabbed her, took her down to the Department of Mental Health and showed her all these single parent women who was pregnant with kids. And I showed, if this is what your life want to be, if you're not prepared. And she waited and today she still haven't had kids. And I did the same thing to my kids, my son. I told him, I said, I made a mistake. Not saying I made a mistake by having you at a young age, but it was hard. Let me explain to you how hard it is. And I went through the litany of stuff I went through to go to college, work, and take care of kids at the same time. So when we give our kids real life experience about the hard work we went through to raise our kids, it's automatic. It's automatic because my son, knock on wood, don't have any kids. My older daughter don't have any kids. She's 21, and I got my 10-year-old. So that's what you're always talking about. You talk to your kids not about sex itself. Talk about the repercussions. Talk about what it really takes to raise a child in today's society. Because when my mother was coming up and had us, he said, "Oh, it only cost us $2,000 to have you." Right now, it costs about $20,000 to have a child. That's only just to have the baby. That's not including daycare, food, clothes, all kind of stuff that comes along with it. So when we put it in the context of that way, a kid is less likely to have premarital sex or have sex at a young age or have a child at a young age because they understand the responsibility. And like Joe,
let me jump in right there. So we can keep things moving. And I totally agree. One thing I remember probably 11 or 12 years old. I was driving with my mom, and out of nowhere, they was talking about sex on the radio, and without hesitation, she's like, "Look, I don't know. I raised you a certain way, but I'm letting you know that if you end up getting someone pregnant, young man, that's not our kid, that's yours." And I just said, "Understood, Mom." And that was a way of my mom saying, "This is on you, bro." Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I'll say this, and this is a little more kind of on a extrapolation side, right? The Brookings Institute, which is a very left-leaning think tank, did a study and said, if you do these three things, you will stay out of poverty in the United States, right? Very, very simple. The three things are: don't have sex before you're married, finish high school, and have a job. Have a job, right? Be employed. And you'll stay out of poverty. Now, here's the deal.
Regardless of ethnicity, too. Regardless of ethnicity.
18 years old and you have sex before you're married and you don't have a job because you're still in school and you drop out of school so that you have to take care of your now all of a sudden family, you're going to end up in some level of poverty, right? Now, when you're in poverty, how do you live? You need the state to help you live. And so what happens is you turn to welfare, you need welfare, you're told you have to have it because of the state you're in, and it's just a perpetual cycle. And if you're on that government teat, when someone stands up and says, hey, vote for me or vote for my party or vote for our ideas because we're going to make more milk come out of that teat for you, that's who you're going to vote for, because in your mind, you're hopeless and you need that, right? There's a big difference between, and I'm a firm believer and I'm a big example. I'm a real life example of that. Pull yourself out from nothing. I mean, I come from a poverty stricken country and I've experienced that, right? So I believe you can pull yourself up and you can be determined enough and you can make stuff happen. But you have to do that. And some people, maybe they don't have that mental fortitude, or maybe they just have a huge sense of hopelessness. And for whatever reason, they're not doing that. And those people are going to say, look, I can survive if I can squeeze as much out of this as possible, and they get put into that frame of mind and into that lifestyle from a very young age, and they don't have to be there, but they think they have to be there, and it just extrapolates over time, especially in certain areas. Obviously there's tons of study that goes into this, right, where we can see certain areas where all this, young families and people having children out of wedlock and before they're employed and before they finish high school, and if they ever come out of the poverty level. And these are the areas that obviously vote a certain way, end up a certain way, and it's sad. And if we teach people the opposite, and they realize, look, if that's all I have to do to get ahead, to get a huge jump start in this world, goodness sake, I can wait, right? I can wait. I can make sure I get a job.
It sounds like you're telling me that there's no such thing as systemic racism. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you this. If there's systemic racism in this country, it's failing, right? I mean, it really isn't doing a good job, because there's more, and I'll say, we'll talk about, since the three of you are here, we'll talk about blacks in this country, right? There's more black lawyers in this country today than ever before. There's more black doctors, more black members of government, more black judges, more black college graduates, more, I mean, you name it, business owners, Fortune 500 CEOs, high-level executives. There's more black, you name it, in this country today than there ever has been before. And come Monday, there'll be even more than there was today. So if the country is systemically racist and the whole country is set up, governmentally and society-wise to hold black people down, the country is doing a very terrible job of that. So I don't buy the whole systemic racism thing, the people who are systemically racism need to get a lot better at it.
Obviously, systemic racism is, I agree with Mark 100%. It's a myth. Yeah. It's false. If it were true, then we wouldn't have people coming here from Africa today, people coming from Ghana, people coming from Nigeria, people coming from wherever, and they would not be doing better than African Americans. If systemic racism is true, then it must be true across the board. Okay, you can't have systemic racism for only people who are descendants of slaves here in America, like my mother's side. Okay, and then not have systemic racism for people who immigrated here from from other countries, like my father's side. Okay?
Weird, right? Weird.
It cannot be like that. It's either across the board or it doesn't exist at all. So because we have people who come here from Nigeria that are they're killing it, okay, because we have people
they kill it.
Nigeria and do so amazing, but you have little Johnny who was born here in the United States, and his family's been here for hundreds of years, and he can't get it together because he's coming from a failing family and a neighborhood that failed him, a family that failed him, right? Like that's that. Like it has to be the same. It can't be different from little Johnny and different from the person that came from Haiti or the person that came from Ghana or wherever.
It seriously is like mental crack. That type of belief is mental crack, and it's just like when I was a teacher at alternative school, it used to burn me up to where the rules were not enforced, and I would enforce the rules when it came to the prized black students who were good athletes. And it just so happened that the two owners were lesbian couple white ladies, and they would always give them a pass. And I'm like, and I'm like, I used to be a black kid, like and it's that type of enabling that disables you later. And I don't know, like, when somebody is giving you the whole thing about systemic racism, it's funny because I try to find somebody or meet somebody where they're at, right? And what do you mean by that? Well, the man, this, that, the other, the man, the man. It's like, look, I can give you some really good examples of some things that were definitely racist in creation, from Planned Parenthood to the Great Society, the Crime Bill of '93, and it's just like it doesn't get more blatant than that. It's like, do you see what they're saying? Like, this is exactly it's amazing how things just get explained away. So what is the kryptonite to systemic racism?
There is no kryptonite. Right now, it's not. You can try your best to educate people out of that mindset as much as you want, but right now, if it's not on a 1-to-1 ratio with the group of people they believe that have the advantage, they're never going to believe systemic racism has ended or does not exist. So if you have 100 white people being doctors or lawyers, you need that equal or greater number of black people being doctors and lawyers. And that's the way they look at things. When I ask them about systemic racism, I say, what system is systemically racist? And then let's go down there together and let's do something about it. Is it the DMV? Is it the Department of Correction? Show me the law, show me the statute, show me the rule, and let's do something about it. Well, you know what it is. It's untold. It's that secret. You know how the white folks are. I was like, well, no, I don't, but I know how the law is. So let's go take a look at it. If you can't show it to me in black and white, it doesn't happen. And they don't want to be educated. They don't want to believe that racism has been fixed. They don't want to believe that life is good now because they don't have that crutch no more to lean on if they don't want to do well in life. So it's never going to go away. There is no kryptonite to systemic racism. As long as you got a grievance, you're going to have systemic racism.
Okay, so systemic racism kind of feeds into the next question, which is statues. All right, statues. Bringing them down, burning them down, breaking them down, whatever. Does it make more sense to keep them up and erect other statues that tell a different story, or what say you?
Well, I have one good. One good example I use of statues. My belief is you keep them up. History is history. Some of the people that we have throughout history in this country and throughout the world were not the fluffiest, cuddliest people, right? I mean, people that have done some great and amazing things were not the best people. I mean, one I bring up all the time because it's a hot topic right now when it comes to the race is Martin Luther King, right? Martin Luther King Jr. was known for more than one occasion being violent towards women. Now, is that bad? Of course that's bad. Does that take away from any of the great things that he did? No, it doesn't, right? I mean, we all, and I'm sure the four of us here, if we really got down to it, have done some things that we're not proud of in our lives. That doesn't mean you need to cancel all the good things that we've done and all the so-so things that we've done, right? I mean, if the standard is for you to have some kind of major accomplishment in this country or in life in general, for you to be perfect, or else we have to get rid of everything we've done, nobody's ever going to be able to stand up to that, right? And it's just, and here's the other thing with the statues. They're tearing down statues of Abraham Lincoln. They're tearing down statues of Ulysses S. Grant. They're just tearing down a statue because they're tearing down statues of Frederick Douglass.
Yeah, right. That's crazy. I mean, you can't write. It would be funny if it was an SNL sketch.
If you want to have a serious talk about why you're tearing down this particular statue, I'll have that conversation with you. But what's happening is these idiots are just going to a public place, doing a statue and tearing it down. And they don't know who the statue is. They don't know what it's for. They don't know what it's commemorating. It's just a statue. I mean, they would tear down Michelangelo's David if you let them.
Yep. No, so the history of Scotland. You got statues there.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when someone tries to take down Robert the Bruce, or what happens over there? For the most part, speculate.
Scotland is very sectarian as far as like religion goes. So you have a good section of the country that doesn't like these people for this reason, and then the other side doesn't like those people for that reason. But at the same time, you take someone like Robert the Bruce, who obviously did a lot for Scotland, but had a lot of bad qualities. And I'll bring up some names that Americans would know. William Wallace is another one, right? did some great things for Scotland, but obviously had some bad qualities. I mean, can we celebrate those people, but still remember some of their negative type qualities or attributes or things that they did? Sure. And I think that's what history is, right? And that's what, you know, going back to what Marcus said with his children, it's our job as fathers, mothers, citizens, and all the way up to the top of the government. If the government wants to be involved, then they need to take the responsibility as well and say, look, there's some good and there's some bad here. Here's what's good, right. Here's what's bad, but here's the whole situation. You can't be running around. That guy's a racist because he was on this side of some team. You can't say that, right? I mean, that's, or else we have to do it with everybody, kind of like what Joy said. It has to be across the board, and the statues, heaven forbid, of Martin Luther King Jr. have to come down as well, because I'm sure not one of us on this thing stand for violence against women, right? I mean, we don't. But that's not why we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr.
You know, I gotta say,
go ahead, Marcus.
Let me say this right fast. You know, the writing was on the wall when it came to the cancel culture many years ago, and you may not really put two and two together, but I thought about it and I had a conversation with somebody about it. We may agree or disagree on this one. Do anybody remember Joe Paterno?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
They took down Joe Pa's statue in Happy Valley over a situation. He had nothing to do with it. He claimed that, but I didn't do the sexual assaulting. My assistant coach did, but you're blaming me because I didn't report it fast enough. They took this man's statue, all the body of work that this man did on the football field and helped so many kids rise to prominence and do great things in the community meant nothing because of this situation. And on the flip side, you have OJ. He was acquitted, but we all know he did it.
Right.
But yet, you don't touch his statues or his legacy at USC, as well as the Buffalo Bills and his Heisman Trophy. You gave him a pass. And I'm like,
how that works.
I said, doesn't it? And that's why I said that's where it started for me when I saw it. Because how do you go after Joe Paterno? Joe Paterno is by far godlike in Penn State, and you take down his statue. You cover it up and you lose it.
What statue would you put up, Joy?
So I wouldn't put up any statues. Okay. Okay. You know, very, very spiritual. I really believe that, you know, like that I believe in the 10 Commandments, right? You know, so I'm not the biggest fan of statues. However, I wouldn't take down any of these statues that these people are taking down. And exactly what Marcus was saying, it's all hypocritical. Okay, you can't take down a statue of Abraham Lincoln, all right, but then fund Planned Parenthood. Okay, you can't take down a statue of Christopher Columbus, but then vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. It doesn't make any sense. You know, the people that they're taking down these statues because their feelings are hurt and because they're being told to. And they also, let's not forget that a lot of these people are paid protesters. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of this cancel culture is so hypocritical. How in the world are you going to take down a statue of Abraham Lincoln, but then vote for someone who was it, the 94, 93 crime bill? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It makes sense if you don't think about it. They're completely brainwashed. It's 2 + 2 = whatever you want it to be. And it's sad. And what you're talking about as far as the whole Biden thing, I'm glad somebody brought it up because I've been waiting to put this video in. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up and we'll go ahead and comment after, okay?
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black, and you ain't black, and you ain't black, and you ain't black.
It was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of 2 United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country.
All right.
Where do we even
You
begin?
guys see that? Do you hear that?
I said, where do we even begin?
I'll tell you that. According
Anybody?
Hey, I'll tell you what, according to Joe Biden, I'm still not black. So
I mean, it's crazy, and like I don't know what people mean by, you know, when they say Trump is racist, and they see that, and it's just like, so what is that dude?
well, listen, that's not one video. You could put the one up where he goes, "Poor kids are just as smart as white kids."
I don't want my family. I don't want my kids growing up in a segregated jungle.
Yeah.
Or, you know, whatever. It's like, come on. So it's like, honestly, I know, Mark, we've joked about this, you know. Have you guys seen the movie Idiocracy?
Mhm.
Okay, it's like we're living in Idiocracy. It seriously is. And it's just like, you can't explain that away. You just can't say, well, he didn't really mean that. And that's the thing that really gets to me, and I'm getting better at it not getting at me, because it knocks me off, you know, killed, is when people say, well, that's not what they meant, or this is what they meant. It's like, you're Professor X now, you're a mind reader. And Marcus, I know we were talking about that before. What do you typically, you know, counter with when someone does the whole, you know, they're trying to do the whole Jedi trick on you, saying, well, that's not what they meant.
I mean, and then I say, well, that's not what Trump meant. Well, yes, he did. I said, well, if you're going to give a pass to Biden, you got to give a pass to Trump when it's, you know, there was great people on both sides. Look, at the end of the day, when you talk to people about Biden and his gaffes, his racist gaffes, they give it a pass because they think Trump is the Antichrist. It's a better good of society to remove Trump and put this other races in, because he's less racist than Trump. So if you got to look at two of the worst evils, then you go with the less of the race of the Trump. I mean, less of the racist, which is Biden. And I think that's just crazy, because he's telling you. I said, if anybody, and I still have this challenge out, if anybody can find me a racist clip of Trump, I give you $1,000. I have put this out, and they still stand right now, and nobody to this day has found me any video clips, any documentation whatsoever to say, yeah, this is it, he's racist. Other than saying that all Mexicans are, you know, most Mexicans are rapists and murderers. I said, that's not racist, that's the truth. But where else can we go? You know what I'm saying? Because I worked in that profession. But show me some true signs or whatever of racism from Trump, and I'll give you $1,000. And not yet to this day. Knock on wood. It's going on 5 years, and nobody has pulled me up on it yet.
Yeah, it's, you know what though, like the whole racism thing it's just a way to get us talking about the more serious issues. Because everybody's racist, you know. It's like it's like animals can be racist now. Did you hear? Mm-hmm. So taking a step back, what can we add or improve to the overall, I guess, political party system to improve it, or what have you not? I mean, Mark, I know we talked about it earlier, but what can we do to just improve things, not from an individual standpoint, because that's up to the individual, but just from the bigger standpoint? Is there anything?
Well, I mean, we were talking earlier around, you know, should there be more than a two-party system going on? And, you know, I said, I brought up the point to you that I come from a country that has more than two parties, right?
Right.
The problem is, and the way I equate it is, it ends up like the NBA playoffs or the Major League Baseball playoffs. You kind of know who's going to be in the finals. And even if you don't, there's going to be two finalists, right?
Yep.
So what you have in a governmental system that has a lot of parties is when it becomes clear who those two finalists are going to be, everybody starts making deals, right? Now, here's the thing right now, and we're all conservatives here. We could get four other people that are very liberal and very leftist, and we're going to vote for our people. They're going to vote for their people, but we know where we stand. and the politicians that we put forth we know where they stand. If they're very liberal, we know. If they're conservative, we know. The problem in this multiple party system, when all these parties start wheeling and dealing, is, look, we voted for you and put you in this position of government, but you're making deals with people that we don't agree with, and we didn't vote for that, right? But yet you're doing that now on our behalf because we voted for you. So it gets very sleazy in that area. And when people here say politicians are sleazy and it's very dirty, that's true. But believe me, compared to the politics in the rest of the world, American politics doesn't see the half of the sleaziness, because imagine we voted conservatives to Congress, right? Or, the House or the Senate or even the White House, and they turn around and start playing games and start playing the other side. Right away, we start calling them a rhino. We start going, wait a minute, that guy's supposed to be conservative, and he's looking like quite the leftist here. Well, in many other countries, when you have these multiple party systems, the second they see that their party is not going to be in the NBA finals, they start making deals with the teams that are in the finals. And that's where it gets dirty. And at least here, there's integrity of, when we send you there, we know what you're going there for. We know what you're about. And you're probably not going to go against that, because that will become quite clear and we'll boot you. So
is the answer just educating others on what we have, i.e. the Bill of Rights? Is that the better way to go? Is this as good as it can get?
Well, I mean, I'll jump in before I let anyone else jump in. Sorry, is that I think it's ridiculous in this country, and I'm sorry, I'm sitting here talking. I'm an American as well, right? I am a citizen here, but I'm sitting here with 3 natural-born Americans.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous that you have to pass the Constitution test in the 8th grade, and then you touch up on it again when you're in sophomore year, and then from here on to further until the day you die, you probably never look at the Constitution again. And in 8th grade and in your sophomore year, you don't even look at the full Constitution. I think the biggest problem with this country is that Americans don't know what their country is. They don't know that document. And I mean, I've sat and I will tell you, I've read that document over and over, and I'll admit there's a lot of stuff in there that probably is a bit, I'm a few constitutional law degrees credits short of actually knowing everything about that document, but I'm pretty well versed in it enough because I've read it and I continue to read it, and I'll look for different opinions from multiple sides on a certain section of it to just try and get some understanding of what maybe conservatives think about it, what liberals think about it. But I know for a fact, because, and Gene, we've had these conversations around campfires, around all kinds of stuff with people, and I've asked them straight, when was the last time you looked at the Constitution? When was the last time you read the law of that land?
You're just supposed to study it, and that goes back to academia. I mean, we don't even say the Pledge of Allegiance anymore. It's so. I go back to education, and it's a good point. And so with that, this is what I wanted to get to kind of wrap up on things. What's more important? What's the most important, the First or the Second Amendment? Anybody? Two? Okay, because if you don't have
you know my answer.
No. Well, it's just it blows my mind. You just look at all of the territories, red or blue, and typically if they're red, meaning conservative, they have less restrictions. And guess what? The crime is lower. Kennesaw, Georgia. You have to own a gun if you're a homeowner there, and they have the lowest crime in America. We can go to Switzerland. Same type of thing. Then you go to, a little place called Chirac in Baltimore and whatnot, and they have the highest restrictions. And it's just, it's crazy. And here's the thing. I almost get offended when a woman says that she doesn't believe Second Amendment, and I just say, well, what? And not to be weird or anything, but I kind of I just say, what would stop you? What would stop me from raping you? And they look at me, I'm like, hey, I'm not condoning it, but seriously, what would you like? What can you do? what would I do? What can I do if I was being chased by a silverback or a bear? I can't do nothing. I might get a punch in, but seriously, the only way to go ahead and level that is that be able to defend yourself with the police. And it's like, well, that's what the police are for. No, they're not. The police come after the chaos has happened. And so now you're telling me a person who's never had a gun held to him, which is always the case. I don't know about you guys, but I've never talked to anybody who went through the whole thing to where they had a gun pulled on them and they weren't Second Amendment after that. So Washington, D.C., I know it's not any, paradise down there.
Well, I give you a real world stat. We got like, I think over 100 murders so far this year. In D.C., if you go right over to Arlington, I mean, literally across the river, they only got one in the whole year because they have the Second Amendment. Not just that, they have the death penalty. And cats in D.C. would tell you, well, you don't kill nobody in Virginia because they got the death penalty. But you go to Maryland, PG County, Montgomery County, Baltimore, they do it all day because why? There's no real repercussions of taking a life. But in Virginia, you take a life, they will take your life. And people know that. So there's a lot of guns in Virginia. Let me say this here. You can own a handgun in DC because I got 2 of them in DC, but it's kind of work to get it, but you can't get a handgun. And it can still carry.
Yeah, I just it's crazy, and I don't know if I mean, look, if you take away the guns, then bad things typically always happen. And I know you have the argument, well, the UK, they don't have any guns,
but
then it's like, well,
higher than anywhere in the world. Knife crime.
That's what you say, but they're like, well, what was that?
I said knife crime in the UK is higher than anywhere else in the world, and it correlated as soon as they took away people's right to actually own firearms. I mean, if I want to do harm to you, and believe me, I've been to some of the dirtiest, darkest, evilest corners on this planet. If someone wants to do evil to you, they'll find a way, whether you allow them to have a gun, a knife, a stick, a goat, whatever it is, they'll find a way to hurt you. And, this fallacy that if you just get rid of guns, you're going to have this little peaceful paradise. It's crazy. I mean, if you get rid of guns for law-abiding people, criminals are still going to have guns.
Well, let me say this right here, and I know we're going to finish up real soon. Ask yourself this question: why have the United States never been invaded by any other country? Think about that. Because they can look at how many tanks and how many army men we have, how many ships, but they can never account for all the guns that citizens have. Because when you look at the movie Red Dawn, the old one, not the new joint, the old joint, who came to the aid of the army? It was the citizens. So that's why the Second Amendment is so important to me, because if we are ever invaded and our army is ever overran, it's going to be the citizens that's going to have to pick up arms and fight back.
America. So Switzerland that's the other country, and they're super tiny. They're super tiny, Switzerland, right? They're obviously their politics are a lot different, but everybody. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on this, but you have to learn how to use your gun there. And not to be a doomsdayer or anything, I hope that things don't go kinetic, with this election. I really hope they don't. We have a lot of the same ingredients for a civil war that has been in past history. So, I'm hoping and praying it doesn't. And what that looks like, we'll have to figure that out on the next show. I think we can spend a whole show talking about that as far as how it would look. Mark does have a military background, so that will be interesting to get your insight on that. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about just the whole, I guess, arming yourself in general next week from a woman's standpoint, because it's so very often it becomes a guy issue. Like, wait a minute, like I would think it'd be just as important, if not more important, to a woman, because it levels the playing field. So something to think about for the next show. And so just to go ahead and get a little bit more levity, real quick, most embarrassing story.
Well,
Marcus.
wait, 1 second.
Go ahead.
So actually, next week I would so in Connecticut it's like you have to jump through hoops to get your pistol permit. So actually I have my appointment to go to the state headquarters.
Oh,
Right now I have a temporary permit. So come Wednesday,
yeah.
I'm filing for
That's why
my
you're smiling.
so it's kind of
Okay.
ironic that next week this time I would have already submitted for my permanent pistol permit. So
Are you getting a tattoo as well?
no.
What are you getting for your pistol? What are you getting?
I don't know yet. I'm very new to
We can talk.
my
We can
boyfriend,
talk.
a Glock. Yeah, no. So actually, that probably will be like my boyfriend. He has two handguns, and
Okay.
you know, but I think I actually have fired a Glock before. It's a little easier to fire than some of the other handguns. So we'll see. Still new
Marcus,
to it.
I know you got good.
I got a Glock and my wife got a 38. So I mean,
Okay, all right. Well, that's romantic. So real quick, I just want to wrap it up with most embarrassing story. What's the most embarrassing thing that happened to you? Anybody?
I was talking to this young lady one time many years ago. I put my best moves on in my best rap game, and unbeknownst to me, my foot was in an ant bed, and the ant started crawling my legs, and I had to drop my pants to get the ant crawling.
How? So what? How did that end up? What was the conclusion?
I mean, it ended well. I had a lot of bite marks on my legs from the fire ant, but nevertheless,
Man,
I'll leave it as that.
you got a moonwalk out of that one, man. That's crazy. Joy or Mark?
Ladies first. Ladies first.
Okay, there. Nice move.
You put me on the spot. Like, there's so many that I, honest to God, can't even think of any right now. Like, when am I not embarrassed? I don't know. That's probably a better question. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. Sorry.
All right, back at you, Mark.
So you know me, I don't get embarrassed at all, right? But one thing I would say that could be considered embarrassing was it was the weekend before we were going to Iraq and we were in San Diego, right? And me and a couple of guys, we went to this club called O. Henry's. And we were drunk before we got there, and I walked right up to the bouncer. I said, look, there's about 8 of us, and we want to buy every bottle of champagne that you guys have in the club, right? The guy goes, all right, hold on a minute. He says, okay, come on in. And they roped off this little area, right? And you have to think it's like 8 young Marines who are about to go off to war. And we were just being idiots. So they start bringing out champagne by the case, right? It was in like wooden crates on ice. And they had us, it was like, I felt like a goldfish. We were in this little roped off area and people are just looking at us like we're P. Diddy. Like, who are these guys, right? Mm-hmm. And we'd all saved up money. And we had spent like $900 each at this club on champagne. It was ridiculous. So The last thing I remember, I was on top of a table with my shirt off, handing out bottles of champagne to people, right? Because we had too much. We had like 12 cases.
That's awesome.
And I'm just handing them out, and people are going like, who are you guys? We're like, shut up and take a bottle, right? But here's the thing. I had to get carried home from the gas lamp district in San Diego to the Hyatt, the Manchester Grand Hyatt right there on San Diego Bay, carried home by another grown man. And I woke up the next morning, man. You know how in the hotel room, all the hotel sheets are white and all this stuff, pillowcases?
No.
They were no longer white. And I just remember the train ride the next day going back up. I was like this, just looking out the window going, oh. So that was kind of embarrassing, but I will say it was one hell of a night.
Well, I guess you won or lost, however you want to look at it.
But I don't remember
Joy,
it.
you wanna-
So, as bad as it was, I don't remember it. So there we go.
I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere.
I have nothing like that. I mean, sorry. I promise I'll think of something for next week. I just can't.
No, it's okay. That's all right. It's
So it's nothing like Mark's, but like my high school, right? Like, and I, honest to God, you're gonna laugh because you're like, this is really about her, but it really seriously was a friend of mine. So the way my school is set up is all the buses are like, down this hill. So usually people will go to the edges of the high school and then around, as opposed to going directly cutting a straight path down the hill to the buses, because it's a steep hill. If you fall, all the buses, and I went to a high school with 1,700 students. So it's like you got like about 15 to 20 like school buses out there, right?
Yeah.
So it's like one day, we must have been like maybe freshmen, I think, and we're trying to catch a bus, and my friend, I swear it was my friend, not me, she like flips on her butt in front of the entire school with all the buses there. So that's all I got. It's obviously not as good as Mark's, but sorry.
Hey, that's all right, because there's the weekend is still short. Maybe you can top Mark next time, but we'll take that for now. I think just for myself, I don't know, man. I did some dumb things. I was in a hurry. It was sophomore year, I think. High school. And I was in a hurry to get to the bus. My mom gave me a pretty serious threat. It was one of those, you better make sure the garbage is gone or else that ass. And I didn't want that. And so I just, whatever I did, I'm like, I can't forget the garbage. So I got the garbage, right? Got the garbage. It had to be like summertime. And so I'm like halfway to the bus stop, and I'm like, what am I forgetting? I didn't put the garbage in the dumpster. I carried the garbage bag that far, and I still had my bag. And I'm like, at that point, I'm like, screw it, I'll just leave it there. But I'm like, I'm still forgetting something. And I got my friends down about maybe, 70 yards. And they're like, come on, the bus is coming, come on. Man, I looked down and I forgot to put my pants on. And no pants. And I'm just like, what do you do at that point? So, and then I'm like slowly, backing up, like, see you guys. And like, where you going? Where you going? And that was pretty bad. And either which way, I did that. It was like quite a bit ago, but I'm sure I can dig up some more stories from last week. Any which way, hey guys, is there anything that you guys wanted to plug in before we closed out?
No, you just find me on Instagram at mark.hemingway58, and yeah, pretty much.
All righty.
Patriotic_JOI Instagram.
Don't look for me on Instagram. No, I'm joking. Mark Turner BJJ on Instagram.
All right, now we're all gonna look at you now.
It's Mark.
All right, well, cool. Hey guys, as always,
everybody's putting their Instagram out
was
there. Find me there. Then that's it. Yeah, nothing else.
Very cool, very cool. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the show who tuned in. You can go ahead and find me at Savi Israel. That's one word. Thanks for tuning in. God bless and be cool. And see you when I see you.
Bye-bye.
If I can get it. And it's not doing it. Oh well, let's end it.